Thank you, Chair. Wars, uncontrolled mass immigration, economic malaise. That's just a small selection from the agenda for the upcoming EU summit. Serious problems that, according to the Europhiles among us, can supposedly only be solved at the EU level. In reality, the EU doesn't offer a solution. In fact, the EU is often part of, or even at the core of, the problem itself. To the extent that crisis situations haven't been created or caused by the EU itself, they've been made worse by it, or at the very least, they painfully reveal that the EU contributes nothing to a solution. The biggest problems the EU is facing are not the result of some unfortunate external circumstances that we just have to deal with. They are the result of the undemocratic nature of the EU itself, which allows policies to be created that are not in the public interest. The EU was never designed to help member states at all. The EU was designed to get a grip on the member states. The ultimate goal was never cooperation, but always integration. Ever-deepening integration that should lead to a centrally controlled federal state in which national parliaments have less and less to say. So not just undemocratic, but even anti-democratic. The systematic undermining of the Netherlands as a sovereign state, and the same goes for the other member states, is demonstrably not the result of design flaws, but of deliberate policy. That is not a theory, not an assumption. That is a statement of fact. The founders of the EU have never made a secret of the fact that, for them, economic cooperation was merely a means to ultimately enforce the real goal, political integration. Jean Monnet, one of the architects of the EU, called the existence of sovereign countries outdated. It was his intention to set up a centralized, technocratic structure in which there would no longer be any room for national democracies. Knowing that the peoples of Europe, who naturally want to preserve their national identity, are not interested in that. That is why this integration project can only be accomplished through cunning and deceit. Former Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker openly admitted it. December 1999 in Der Spiegel, and he said, I quote, "We decide on something, wait to see what happens, and if there is no protest because most people do not even understand what has been decided, then we take the next step. And we keep going until there is no way back." End of quote. Chairman, that is not cooperation. That is a deliberate strategy to mislead peoples and rob them of their sovereignty before they even realize it. The European Union is not what it claims to be. It is not a peace project. It is not a partnership. It is not a democratic entity. It is an anti-democratic system designed to undermine national sovereignty and drag countries along into policies they did not choose, that people do not want and cannot adjust. But, Madam Chair, there is still hope. The Netherlands can once again become a safe, prosperous, democratic country. But then we must have the courage to throw off the yoke of Brussels. The Netherlands must once again become a sovereign country where the Dutch people, and no one else, hold the highest authority. That explicitly does not mean that we are against Europe, as is often claimed. We are for Europe, for a Europe of sovereign countries, of voluntary cooperation between free peoples who determine their own policies. And that is why I call on caretaker Prime Minister Schoof, stop cooperating in Brussels with the system that sells out our national interest, but act in the interest of the Dutch people who want their future back and advocate for starting a process that should lead to the dismantling of the European Union.